Chapter 1. A Gentle Whisper. What you do in this life echoes in eternity. Gladiator. Great moments don't always seem great in the moment. It is not until after we look back on them that we tend to realize they were the catalyst that catapulted us in a certain direction and propelled us past the point of no return. Mine came January 19th, 2002, on a football field in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Tom Brady, a talented second year quarterback out of the University of Michigan, stood on the sidelines next to his offensive coordinator. Down 13-10 in blizzard like conditions, with less than 2 minutes to play in the fourth quarter, he and the New England Patriots were trying to advance the ball down the field and advance beyond this AFC divisional playoff game. To do so, however, they would have to go through the teeth of a gritty and seasoned Oakland Raider defense. On most days, the hype and excitement of the game overshadows the weather. On this night, however, the forces of nature dominated the event. An Arctic storm had settled in over New England, with game-time temperatures dipping down into the teens. Sleet, followed by steady snow, blanketed the field with as much as 5 inches of powder, making the field markings virtually indistinguishable. During commercial breaks, the maintenance crew provided cosmetic and comic relief as they slipped and sputtered across the field, trying to push snowblowers. We used the longest spiked cleats the league would allow, but finding any kind of solid footing on this frozen turf was next to impossible. And to make matters worse, the crowd was just as unpredictable as the weather. Over 60,000 juiced up Patriot fans shook the grandstands like rolling claps of thunder. Night games in the NFL always draw a more raucous and inebriated crowd, but this was something for the ages. A nationally televised playoff game in a driving snowstorm on the final game to be played at Foxborough Stadium. The fans hoped to steal a victory, a goalpost, or perhaps even the seat they sat on as they exited the ballpark in celebration. They sensed they had something special in this team and in their young quarterback, and they were hungry to witness their first championship. Propane heaters were positioned along the sidelines for the players, and as our guys tried to stay loose by stretching and throwing footballs, some fans did their best to distract us by hurling snowballs, insults, and taunts of every unmentionable kind. Over the course of my career, I have been hit with batteries, beer bottles, cups of urine, and chunks of ice, so in comparison, the Pats fans were quite mild. In fact, I loved playing in hostile environments, as I always could respect passion and fan hatred for the opposing side. It actually fueled me and motivated me to further embarrass and defeat their beloved team. From the outset, this game had all the elements of a truly epic football game: the weather, the talent, the playoff atmosphere, and the crowd. It was a roller coaster of a game, and every player was physically and emotionally invested in it from start to finish. This was NFL playoff football at its best, and football like it was meant to be played: demanding, unforgiving, unrelenting, and unpredictable. "Hey, we should go 3-by-1 and throw the slant backside," Brady relayed to his coach. In the chaos of the moment, neither Coach Weiss nor Brady noticed six-time Pro Bowl Raider cornerback Eric Allen stationed stealthily along the sidelines. Stealing signals in the NFL has long been refined to an art form, and no one did it better than our opportunistic defense. As players hustled back to their respective sidelines, Allen simply followed the pack of Patriots as though he was part of the team. Kneeling down as if to tie his shoe, the 14-year veteran stood directly behind the official's down marker and inconspicuously crept to within earshot of the Patriot signal caller. Like a fox stalking the henhouse, he overheard the offensive play call and raced back to the Raider huddle to set up the defense. It wasn't too difficult to decipher the play, as both teams ran similar offenses, and many of the offensive terms in the league were widely used. Hey, they're going to go with a 3-by-1 formation, so linebackers, make sure you're in that first throwing window. Little did we know this would prove to be the biggest play of the game in the biggest game of the season for our team. And in particular, this would be the biggest play for me as well. Planning to retire. I had intentions of retiring the previous offseason in 2000. I informed management of my plans early in preseason so they could prepare for it by signing or drafting a replacement for me. But owner Al Davis and general manager Bruce Allen didn't want me to retire, and simply wouldn't take no for an answer. A few days into training camp that year, Bruce and head coach John Gruden showed up at my doorstep unexpectedly, saying the team missed my leadership on the offensive line and needed me to come back for one more season. So, of course, I did. This year, however, there was no recanting my retirement plans. I had announced my retirement before the season began, so this was potentially the last game of my professional career. After 13 full-throttle seasons as an offensive guard in the NFL, my body was feeling the effects from countless collisions, concussions, and contusions. Starting with my head and working my way down to my ankles, Monday mornings were usually a very slow process of assessing the pain level and mobility in my body. Something each week was bound to hurt, and my body never seemed to have enough time to fully heal before I went out and injured myself again the following Sunday. Practice and weight training only further aggravated old injuries. Football players learn to live with the stiffness and swelling of the previous game, as adrenaline, ice, painkillers, and anti-inflammatory drugs can only carry you for so long. As my career progressed, the season evolved into a 7-month marathon of pain management, physical treatment, and emotional swings from narrow victories and bitter defeats. When it came to retirement, I had always admired players who walked away from football at the top of their game. They refused to whimper and hang on to one more season, even if they could still perform at a high level. I admired men of strength, conviction, and character, like former Raider teammates Matt Millen, Howie Long, Jeff Hostetler, Don Mosbar, and Bo Jackson. They were proud to wear the silver and black, and were men who could be trusted and counted on when the game, or for that matter my life, was on the line. From early on, I sought to model my career, my actions on the field, and my style of leadership after these guys, and I hoped that perhaps I could instill something positive into those who came after me. The Raider organization had been wonderful to my family and me, and deep down I was disappointed that I was never a part of a Raider team that won a Super Bowl. At 33, I was getting old for an NFL player, and inwardly I doubted that I was physically up to the challenge of another season. Football is a young man's sport, but I reasoned that I owed them one more season if they felt so strongly that I could be of help. They agreed with that logic and said, "Pack your clothes. It's time to report to camp." With that, I was off. The week prior to the Patriot game, Coach Gruden gave a fiery speech to the team, laying out the wild card scenario and how we were going to defend home turf against the New York Jets. Gruden was a brilliant offensive coach and is now an excellent commentator. He is a true competitor, always outspoken, and has the heart of a lion. He made it fun for us veteran players, and his energy and confidence were contagious, sometimes even comical with his coarse language and exaggerated facial expressions. Needless to say, I loved playing for Gruden, as did the rest of the team. He was able to take an average group of guys, some past their prime and with limited ability, and convince us that we could be champions. He expected us to win and helped us to believe that we would win every time we stepped onto the field. I had no intention of going out a loser, so I meticulously prepared myself for this contest with the New England Patriots. I had an exacting pregame routine, and I stuck to it religiously. I arrived at the stadium on the early bus, which gave me nearly 4 hours to prepare prior to kickoff. I laid out my uniform, socks, and several pairs of shoes. I stretched my stiff, cold body and taped down my jersey and shoulder pads with double-sided tape. It took me nearly 45 minutes just to make sure my jersey wouldn't have any creases or extra material a defender could grab. Athletic trainer Scott Touche then taped my ankles, wrists, knuckles, and eventually my cleats once they were fully laced up. It was a process scripted to the smallest detail, which is typical for any player in the NFL. Every player has their own routine on game day, and coaches learn to give guys their space in the locker room as they prepare. Every game I saw myself as a warrior going into battle with my teammates at my side. Like a boy with a Superman cape, I felt invincible. The field is my playground, I would say to myself. It was a phrase I had coined early in my career, and I would regularly repeat it to my teammates. Sometimes I quoted Psalm 23 to myself to bring additional comfort as I walked through the haze and noise of fan ridicule. As was my custom, I reviewed my assignments, my playbook, and my personal goals for the game. The night before each game, Coach Gruden detailed the first 15 opening plays with us as an offense, and I would make it a point to memorize my list. On the handout, I also wrote down my personal goals, tips to look for during the game, and my favorite motivational scriptures. My paper always included Psalm 28, verse 7, and Psalm 91, verse 2. The mental aspect of professional sports is something that cannot be overlooked. Athleticism only carries you so far, but great champions in every sport tend to be mentally strong. Mentally strong people are not fazed by adversity and trials. People like to label Christians as weak and timid, but I hate this stereotype, as there is no weakness found in the man Jesus Christ. His spirit is unshakable, and with him we have no one or nothing to fear. Christians should not apologize for boldly standing their ground for truth and righteousness. In order to play at a high level, I had learned to tune everything out during a game, to completely focus my thoughts inward, control my heart rate, and breathe slowly while maintaining awareness of all that was going on around me. Before games, I would sit at my locker in silence, eyes closed and mind focused, as I visualized my blocks and the scenes of the opening plays. I was determined to play with all of my heart and to be there to support my teammates through thick and thin. If there was a fight, I wanted to be in the middle of it. When our ball carriers were tackled, I wanted to be there to help them up. If there was an interception, I wanted to make the tackle. Like a gladiator in the Colosseum fighting for his life, I felt I owed it to my teammates to lead them out of the arena victoriously. The biggest play of the game. After 3 hours of preparation, I was taped up, tapped into the spirit, and in full battle mode a good 20 minutes before the coin toss. In all my 24 years of playing organized football, I never felt more prepared for a game than this one. Win or lose, I was determined to spill my guts onto the gridiron that night, and from the first snap to the final play, I did. I flew over every pile of bodies, sprinted out every play until the echo of the whistle, and competed with reckless abandon for 4 quarters. As the game progressed, stinging wind and ice relentlessly punished my face. At one point, I looked down at my uniform, stained with grass and dirt. My body was covered in sweat as blood oozed from a recurrent gash on my forehead. My teammates were equally as focused and driven. I remember seeing wide receiver Jerry Rice's uniform looking weather-beaten, soaked and twisted on his shoulder pads. Without a word, I reached across the huddle, pulled the collar of his jersey back over his pads, and lightly slapped the side of his helmet, releasing several inches of packed snow from his face mask. Not a word needed to be spoken because he too was oblivious to the surroundings. When Brady dropped back to pass, little did we know that he was participating in arguably the most controversial play in all of NFL history. Anticipating the slant, Charles Woodson got a good break from the line and got to the quarterback on a blitz. Brady lost the ball. Greg Biekert dove on it and recovered the fumble on the 47-yard line. With 1:43 remaining in the fourth quarter, a victory and a berth in the AFC Championship game was all but secured. The Raiders sideline instantly exploded in celebration, as the Patriots sideline and their fans recoiled. There was no mistaking what had just happened. The tide of momentum had clearly swung for the Raiders to seal a victory. Just as our offense lined up to snap the ball and run out the clock, the referees waved their arms and blew their whistles. They made their trot over to the replay booth. The play was under review. Review? We questioned one another. What is there to review? It was clearly a fumble. Even by witnessing Tom Brady's reaction after the play, he clearly knew it was a fumble too. He didn't even question the referee's call or raise an argument in displaying his dismay. Dejected, he immediately put his head down and walked over to the sidelines. Players and fans alike never want the officials to decide a game because of a bad call, and the longer they looked at the play, the more nervous we grew. We all felt a knot in our gut when head referee Walt Coleman returned to the field and signaled incomplete pass. He explained that the ball was moving forward at the time it was dropped, thus declaring it a dead ball. The obvious fumble was overturned, and the ball was returned to the Patriots. Both teams appeared shocked and momentarily stunned in disbelief. Instead of the Raiders gaining possession on our own 47-yard line, the call kept the Patriots' drive alive. The Patriots took advantage of their new life. Facing strong winds and driving snow, place kicker Adam Vinatieri sent an explosion of snow up into the air as he drilled the ball through the uprights from 45 yards out. With 27 seconds remaining in regulation, his line drive field goal tied the game at 13-13 and sent it to overtime. In the overtime period, we never got the ball back. The Patriots won the coin toss and drove 61 yards in 15 plays, winning it on a Vinatieri 23-yard field goal. New England would advance to the AFC Championship game against the Pittsburgh Steelers and eventually defeat the St. Louis Rams to win Super Bowl 36. This game went down as one of the most-watched football games in all NFL history. It is commonly referred to as the Tuck Rule game, or the Snow Bowl. To Raiders fans, however, it is dubbed the Snow Job, as replays showed the Tuck call was a dubious matter of interpretation at best. After the game, Charles Woodson described the play as he saw it. He pumped the ball, brought it back down. Maybe he wanted to bring it back up, but the ball came out. Game over. It kind of took the air out of a lot of guys. We knew the game was over. We were all celebrating. He was right. 2 plays before. For me, however, the play of the game came 2 plays before the controversial Tuck Rule play, before the Patriots had ever taken possession of the football. With only a couple of minutes remaining on the clock, we had the ball at midfield. It was 4th and 1, and instead of punting, the decision was made to go for it. We needed just 1 yard to get a first down and seal the victory. The play came in as 14 blast. I loved the call. It was just like John Gruden. It was bold, it was risky, and it showed he had full faith and trust in his offensive unit. The play came into the huddle as our Old Faithful 14 blast. This was our number 1 go-to short yardage and goal line play. Our coaches preached for years that this play is unstoppable, even if the entire stadium knows you're running it. Sadly, that night, I think the entire stadium did know we were running it. In theory, the play requires simple execution and should gain at least 1 yard or more on every attempt. On this play, the center and right guard are trained to block any defender in the gap to their left. The left guard, which is my position, pulls around to the play side A gap, and the fullback and I act as lead blockers for the tailback. It should result in a mass of bodies running the ball right over the original lineman of the right guard. We had practiced it hundreds of times over the years, and even ran it successfully dozens of times in previous games. I grabbed my dirt-covered mouthpiece that I taped to my face mask, and bit down hard on the frozen and brittle plastic. Quarterback Rich Gannon called the play. We broke the huddle and sprinted to our positions on the line of scrimmage. This was it. We could win the game right now all on our own. We only needed 1 yard, and this was the play to get us that yard. I sunk my hand into the snow and attempted to dig my cleats into the frozen turf. With my hand on the line, I kept my eyes up to scan the defenders' locations. I saw Patriots linebacker Teddy Bruschi inching forward as Gannon started his cadence. Blitzing defenders just can't help themselves. Like predators stalking their prey, their body posture and demeanor almost always give them away. Just as anxious as I was to gain a yard and get a first down, so he was equally determined to make a big play and stop us for no gain. When the center flexed his bicep to snap the ball, Bruschi sprinted to the play side A gap over our right guard. He watched film too and was well coached. Before our right guard could take his first step, Bruschi was in the gap, causing penetration and a pileup of bodies. As I pulled out of my stance, the fullback and I tripped on the surge of defenders. In an instant, there was a plume of snow, dirt, cleats, and a pile of bodies that looked like the scene of a small avalanche. When the whistle had been repeatedly blown, the referees began pulling players off the pile, only to reveal the ball carrier was stopped an inch or two short of the first down. I felt sick to my stomach, like I had personally failed my coaches and my teammates. If I had done a better job, maybe we would have gotten that first down. That play still haunts me to this day. The Patriots took possession of the ball on downs. Had we converted, the tuck rule play would never have happened. The best is yet to come. After the game, however, there was an intense outburst of emotion from both teams. The Patriots and their fans celebrated wildly while we were shell-shocked and in utter disbelief. Some of my teammates quickly sprinted off the field, surrounded by security guards, as the crowd erupted into a Mardi Gras-like pandemonium. Others slowly filed off the field and into the locker room. Tears were streaming down grown men's faces, while others vented a tirade of profanities. Most of my teammates felt the officials cheated us out of victory. Jerry Rice summed it up best when he said to reporters in the locker room, "I feel like we had the game stolen from us." After the game, I joined a small group of players from both teams at midfield to kneel in prayer, which is a time-honored NFL player-led custom since the early 1990s. In an act of Christian unity seldom covered by the media, a member of the home team leads in a brief prayer of thanks and praise. My mind was already being flooded with the sea of thoughts, so I'm not exactly sure what was prayed that night. I thought about the many unplanned and unscripted events of my career, the gut-wrenching losses, the miraculous come-from-behind victories, the many failures and successes I had experienced over the course of my 23 years in organized football. I recalled my teammates, some of whom had suffered devastating injuries. I thought of center Don Mosbar, who lost the use of his eye in a preseason scrimmage in Dallas, and Napoleon McCallum, whose knee was dislocated and turned around backward right in front of me at a game in San Francisco. I remembered fun times and adventures with my teammates, the joy I felt when named team captain, and the pride I took in representing my team in the Pro Bowl. Despite being utterly crushed and disgusted with myself that we lost the game, an inexplicable wave of peace came over me as I neared the end zone. Limping off the field, I found myself involuntarily singing the tune of a children's Sunday school song. "The Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and rain and an apple seed. Yes, the Lord's been good to me." What a ridiculous song to come to mind, I thought to myself, yet I couldn't stop singing it to myself. In that moment, any thought of looking back with sadness or regret vanished, and all that remained was the grace of God. A huge smile came to my face, and it felt like a mountain of frustration lifted off my back. I didn't hear any audible voice from heaven, nor did I see any visions from above, but I had a strong impression that the Holy Spirit was whispering something to my soul. The best is not behind you. The best is yet to come. I've called you to do more than just play football. If anyone around me was watching, they must have thought I'd gone loony. We had just lost the biggest game of the season, and we did it in devastating fashion. We had fallen short of our goal of reaching the Super Bowl. And to make matters worse, this was the last game of my NFL career. This is not the way I wanted to go out, and normally I was disappointed and very critical of myself after a loss. But in the midst of an angry, volatile locker room, I was smiling, hugging teammates, and mumbling a happy little children's tune that simply wouldn't get out of my head. Sensing a call from God. I had sensed the call of God in my life over the final years of my NFL career. I followed whatever play was called by the quarterback for 23 years of organized football. I never questioned it, faithfully executing my assignment each and every time. But would I be willing to follow the call of God? I thought at one time maybe God was leading me into full-time ministry, yet that didn't seem appealing. I would be bored out of my mind working in a church. I inwardly hungered to learn more about God, though, so I read a slew of Christian books when we traveled as a team, and I began a more disciplined study of reading through the Bible. I spent more time in prayer and in fellowship with other believers, and somehow I felt there was something more for me than just a life in the world of football. I read an account in the Old Testament about how God revealed himself to the prophet Elijah. He had Elijah go up to a mountain, and a great wind ripped through the mountain. After that, an earthquake violently shook the rock, and finally, a blazing fire swept across the mountain. Each time it states that the Lord was not present in those events. He certainly had a hand in causing them, but he did not speak through those events. It states that after all that chaos, the Lord revealed himself to Elijah through a gentle whisper. See 1st Book of Kings, chapter 19, verses 10 through 13. That resonated with me. A gentle whisper. At different times throughout my life, I went through violent mountaintop experiences, but God didn't necessarily speak through them. As the storms cleared in my life, however, and especially now at the tail end of my professional career, I could sense a gentle whisper coming from the heart of God. I believe it was God drawing me in, revealing himself to me, and giving me an assignment. The Raiders would have welcomed me back for another season, but I felt it was the right time to step away. The reality of God in me was becoming greater than the desire to pursue the glamour of the lifestyle that surrounded me. For most, retirement is the end, but for me it was just the beginning, the start of my journey toward answering the call of God for my life. Chalk Talk. 1. How do you currently handle times of stress, hardship, disappointment, or personal failure? 2. Does God care who wins a football game? Is anything really too big or too small to bring to him? 3. Have you ever tried to invite God into your workspace? Do you turn to him in prayer when life's pressures are on you, or do you try to carry the burden alone? 4. Do you sense any kind of calling or gentle whisper from God in your life? What's he saying to you? 5. Do you sense it is time to move into a new season for your life spiritually, emotionally, or physically? How might you do that?